Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the first in a series of 5 videos that I've called Awakening to Happiness. And the series is really my sharing a bit of my journey in awakening to happiness, but it's also a journey that I'm inviting you to come on. Now, it's in aid of 2 programs, 2 one-year programs coming up in 2025. The first is called the Awakeners one-year program, and it's for people who want to help others wake up to happiness, well-being, and a life they love. And the other is for you if you just want to be really happy and love your life. But whether or not you do the programs, and you'll see links to the programs underneath the video, the invitation to awaken to happiness is a real one. I was talking to a client this morning, and he shared a story about being woken up in the night last night, 3 a.m. by his 4-year-old who was screamed out because he was having a nightmare. And my client said, I freaked out at first, but then I realized, oh, he's just having a nightmare. He's okay. And we both went back to sleep. Well, wouldn't it be cool if your life has felt like a bit of a nightmare? If the inside of your head has ever felt like a bit of a nightmare? If even while you were in the midst of the nightmare, you'd go, it's okay. I'm having a nightmare, but I'm okay. And then, wouldn't it be cool if you woke up? Because you know how when you wake up after a dream, no matter how full sensory the dream was, it fades quite quickly. Maybe not immediately if it's really vivid, but it fades quite quickly. Well, we all live in a dream of thought. We all live in a world that is created by thought. The physicist David Bohm said, thought creates our world, and then says, I didn't do it. Well, that's the dream of life that we are all living in. And when we wake up to the fact that we're dreaming, we start to sense that we're okay regardless of what's happening in the dream. And then as the mystic Don Miguel Ruiz said once in an interview, I was interviewing him for Hay House, and he said, life is a dream. And what I do as a teacher is I help people master the art of dreaming. Now, this first video, I wanted to start with, what if there's really nothing wrong with you? Now, you might think, well, there is nothing wrong with me. Next video. And if so, that's great. But I've met very few human beings who really don't think at some level that they're effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. They're fine. I'm fine. And that at some level, it's even in the culture, original sin, that we're kind of born broken. But maybe if we work hard enough, if we do all the right things, we can get back to okay. Well, for me, that was just real. I knew I was broken. I'd been officially broken from my teen years when I was diagnosed as depressed and had suicidal ideation, and then I became a high-functioning depressive, and I learned all sorts of things I could do to mitigate my depression. And I kind of did wake up from the suicidal ideation one day and saw that it was thought. If you want to know more about that, check out my TED Talk, Why Aren't We Awesomer? And I share the story in more detail there. But my first real moment of awakening to happiness, of waking up from the nightmare, from the dream of thought, was when I was listening to a video of a talk given by the Scottish mystic Sid Banks. And not long into the talk, maybe it was 5 minutes, maybe it was 10, he said, every human being is sitting in the middle of mental health. They just don't know it. And that hit me so hard. I've had a student once describe that kind of insight It's like being punched in the face by the fist of God. It was like, whoa. But what I actually heard beyond the words was the truth that babies don't need therapy. None of us are born thinking that we're broken. None of us are born broken. Our bodies might be. Even our brains might not work quite the way most brains do. But we are made of life. We are perfect. Now, I've heard people say, well, yes, I mean, nobody looks at a baby and says they're broken. Actually, my mother-in-law did kind of look at one of our kids and go, ooh, that's an ugly baby. But I guess that's different from being broken. But the truth, and you know this if you stop for even half a second, is that we're not born broken. We know there's nothing wrong with us. There might be something wrong with our bodies, but there's nothing wrong with us. And then systematically, through our lives, we're taught, actually, it would be better if you were more like this and less like that. And actually, that's not how people should be. And actually, and the more we're told there's something wrong with you, you shouldn't be like that, the more we internalize it. And the more we start to just accept it. Okay, well, I guess I'm broken. Oh, well, I guess I'll do the best I can given that I'm broken. Well, maybe I'll still have moments of happiness through my brokenness. And that dream of thought, that dream of a self-concept, a self-image, an ego self, we start to think that's who we are. And we lose touch with our nature. And our nature is happiness. Our nature is well-being, that sense of all being well. Our nature is peace. Our nature is stillness. You only have to spend a little bit of time with a sleeping puppy or kitten or baby or panda or sloth. Those are my wife's favorites. And you know, we're born perfect and whole. And in the dream, things can happen. We can become broken. We can lose our soul. We can, and so for me, as somebody who was not just a little broken, I was diagnosed broken. It was a shock to realize that there was nothing wrong with me, no matter how much I thought there was wrong with me. I had just innocently misunderstood how the mind works, what feelings are telling me. And over the course of these 5 videos, I'll share more about how the mind works and what our feelings are telling us. But I wanted to start here because there's something incredibly liberating about waking up to the fact that there's nothing wrong with us. We just, a lot of the time, think there is. And that was game-changing for me. I had actually written a book about how to feel happy in spite of how broken you probably are, that I was in the midst of a book tour for when I realized, whoops, my bad. I didn't know what I didn't know. And then I did. And I will say that book, which shall not be mentioned, I don't talk about very much anymore. But it really was the best I knew at the time about how to function in a nightmare, how to even thrive in the midst of a nightmare. But I didn't realize that's what the book was about. I thought it was about how to be happy, because I thought happiness was something you had to do. I didn't realize it's who we all are. Now, I think the reason that this is so fresh for me, even though that happened 16 years ago, just a little over 16 years ago, was because recently I was having a conversation with my mentor, Mavis Karn. And if you've never heard of Mavis, she's one of the most brilliant humans I have ever met. And I'll talk a little bit more about her book in a minute. But I was talking with Mavis, and I was telling her about the latest personal development project I was engaging in. I'd noticed, I do this and that's not a good idea. So I should fix that. I should do something about that. And I was asking her what she thought about my problem. And she said, "Are you happy?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Then what's the problem?" And I kind of was like looking around as if something around me was going to tell me what the problem was. And then I tried again to explain the problem to her. And she said, "Are you happy?" And I was like, "Yeah, because I am." And she said, "Then what's the problem?" And I realized there wasn't one. I was just trying really hard to make things into a problem because I'm kind of used to spending my time problem solving. And then I had a little flash. So I said I'd say a little bit more about Mavis. So the first book that my publishing company published was Mavis's book. And basically I created a publishing company so I could get her to write a book because I really wanted her to write many of the things that she and I have talked about over the years down. And the first piece in the book was originally called The Secret. And it was written many years ago and passed around prisons all over the United States and then ultimately all over the world. And I'm just going to read you the first page, which is The Secret. "Dear kids and former kids, I have a secret to tell you. Nobody meant to keep it from you. It's just that it's been one of those things that's so obvious that people couldn't see it. Like looking all over for the key that you have in your hand. The secret is that you are already a completely whole, perfect person. You are not damaged goods. You are not incomplete. You are not flawed. You are not unfinished. You do not need remodeling, fixing, or major rehabilitation. You already have within you everything you need to live a wonderful life. You have common sense, wisdom, genius, creativity, humor, and self-esteem. You are pure potential. You are missing nothing." Now, it made me laugh because I've read that to audiences. I've read that to clients hundreds of times. I published the damn book. And somehow I just kind of heard all that as, well, yeah, I know at a soul level I'm perfect. I know at a deeper level I'm perfect. But oh my God, my personality, I'm a mess. But I'm not my personality any more than you're yours, any more than I'm this jumper, any more than your whatever house you live in. If you look in the mirror, this was something else Mavis suggested. If you look in the mirror, you will see the only one of you in the world. Isn't that cool? Now, the reason I phrase this as, what if there really is nothing wrong with you, as opposed to there's nothing wrong with you, is I've had people tell me there's nothing wrong with me for years. I've also had people tell me all the things that are wrong with me, but they balanced out. What's kind of fun to consider, and that's my invitation to you from our first video, is what if there really is nothing wrong with you? Well, then it wouldn't make a lot of sense to spend much time trying to fix yourself, trying to improve yourself. You can fix your house, you can improve your skills at work, but you don't have to improve you. You came into this world perfect. You will leave this world perfect as you are. And the feeling of that perfection, the feeling of you, is a feeling that can be really well described by the word happiness. Not happy as the opposite of sad, but a pervasive sense of well-being, of all being well. Now, the other thing that happens if you really kind of take it to heart as a thought experiment, well, what if there really is nothing wrong with me, is all the things that you currently have cited as evidence of your brokenness, as things that are wrong with you, you need to find other explanations for. Because there's something wrong with you isn't a viable explanation. You may have misunderstood the connection between thought and feeling, and thought your feelings were telling you something about the world and not just feedback about what's going on in your mind in the moment. You may have heard somewhere along the line something about what you need to do to become who you are. And that will have just reinforced the idea that you aren't who you are. Of course you are. How could you not be? It may be that you make mistakes. Most people do. I really would say all people, but it just sounds better to say most people. It may be that you believed something that turned out not to be true, and it messed with you, and it messed with what you did. Well, that's true. But none of that is evidence of brokenness. None of that means anything about you. And when you start to wake up from the idea that you're broken, that you should be other than how you are, you begin to wake up to happiness. So we'll be talking about this more in the other videos. If you're interested in the programs, you can find them at michaelneill.org/awakeners and michaelneill.org/happy. And I will talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.